Hey there, I'm Dr. Dave. Welcome back to Microdose U. Thank you so much for being here. I want to let you know that nothing I share here is medical advice, and also please use psilocybin or any other psychedelics where it is allowed by law. So I've been traveling. If you've been following me, I've been on this road trip now for, I think it's about 18 or 19 days into it so far. And I'm having a great time traveling in my car across the USA. It's unbelievable. But what's happened is I've gotten a little bit behind on answering some of your questions. I get a lot of questions that come in through email and YouTube and things like that. And I thought I would take today's episode and let's just get down and dirty and answer some of these pressing questions that have come in. And some of them are actually quite good. And they could be questions that you're also thinking about, wondering about, but just haven't really taken the time to ask me. So let's get right into them now. First question comes from Breathing Through the Static. This was over on YouTube. Breathing Through Static says, I've been microdosing psilocybin for about 3 weeks now and I feel calmer, but I'm not getting those aha moments that people talk about. Am I doing something wrong or is it just subtle for some people? Well, breathing, great question, but I want to ask you a question. And what kind of aha moment are you actually referring to? I'm not positive. I guess let's go back and ask you, what's the reason you are microdosing? What's the reason you're using psilocybin? Is it for anxiety? Is it for depression? Is it for something like PTSD? Is it for something else? And then you have to take a step back and say, is it helping this issue that I have? Have you noticed, let's just say it's for anxiety. Have you noticed your anxiety lessening up? If it's for depression, have you noticed that your days are getting a little bit better? Now you say you've only been doing this for 3 weeks. That's a really short amount of time as well. I've been going over 4 years now, and in a 4-year time frame, you'll be able to really feel, you'll understand it so much more. But even after 3 weeks, I mean, my benefits or my feelings, my good feelings started very early on. So yes, you should and could be feeling something after 3 weeks, but I don't know if you're just going to say, oh, aha, I've reached nirvana. This is it. It's subtle. But again, think about what you're doing it for and has that improved? I think that's the most important thing to look at right now, especially being only 3 weeks into it. I really hope this helps. Let me know if you need more clarification on my answer there. From Not Just Neurons, do you think there's a spiritual component to microdosing? I started for anxiety, but now I'm starting to feel like something deeper is happening. Is that normal? Absolutely 100% yes. So again, if I can use myself as an example, I started microdosing a little over 4 years ago for anxiety and depression. And yes, although it really has helped both of those, I mean, they're pretty much non-existent right now, but also along the way, and I've done a lot of episodes on this, I've shared a lot of this with you, I've noticed other changes in my life, the way I feel, and yes, spiritual for sure. I'm able to see things, and it's very hard to explain this in words. I don't even know how to do this, but I'm able to see and feel things about spirituality, about life, about the universe, about like what is everything? What's going on here? What are we doing here? I've been able to feel that much deeper and explore that much deeper in my mind. And I actually have I think I have a much better sense of like, what is all this? What is going on? And I've done a few episodes on this over the years, but yes, absolutely yes. Many or most or some people, I can't quantify that, have a much better deeper spiritual feeling from using psychedelics. And even in the microdosing dosage range, yes, absolutely. So thanks for that question. That's a great one. Next question comes from Mystic Cyclist 57. What a great name that one is. I've heard you mention microdosing LSD too. LSD also. how do you personally compare the two? Like, what's the vibe difference between LSD and a psilocybin microdose? Yeah, another really good question there. Again, it's a feeling. It's hard to put into words, like in the language. Um, but if I had to say, I would say, let me think about this. I would have to say the feeling from LSD. Let's say you microdose in the morning. Let's just make this up. Like microdose in the morning, and usually you feel a little bit different, better. Of course, better. You should feel better. Why aren't you doing it if you're not feeling better? But the feeling with mushrooms or psilocybin tends to not really be as long as with LSD. When I microdose LSD, pretty much all day long, I can feel something beneficial for sure. Whereas with mushrooms, it doesn't really last the whole day. And also, and I think I shared this on a previous episode, is that when I microdose LSD, I feel that I really only need it once a week, maybe twice, but much less often. So I think there's something, and I don't know if this is the right word to use, like a little bit more powerful with LSD. And when I say powerful, I don't want to lead you on to think that's more dangerous or something like that, or you can OD on it. Although you got to remember the dosages for LSD are generally in micrograms, which is like micrograms are just like the smallest specks ever. I mean, a microgram probably couldn't even hold, you probably couldn't see it if you held it in your hand. It's tiny, tiny, tiny. So the chance of error and taking too much, unless you're very careful, you have to really know what you're doing, is maybe greater with LSD, because if just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit more could be a few micrograms more. So you have to be careful with that. But all in all, like I said, I think LSD, and I don't want to ramble about this, but I think it's a little more of a little more powerful and longer acting, but they both get the job done. So many people don't want to touch LSD. They feel it's dangerous. They feel it's a hard drug, which is absolutely not true. Psychedelics are not considered hard drugs. They're not addictive. You can't overdose on them. I would argue they're safer than alcohol, safer than tobacco, safer than a lot of things that we use on a daily basis. There's no question in my mind about that. I hope that helps you. Again, it's unless you're experiencing it, it's hard to put into actual words. But I did the best I could there. So hope that works for you, Mystic Cyclist. Quiet Tide Journey. So is it better to microdose alone or with other people around? I'm wondering if the environment makes a big difference, especially for someone just starting out. Well, Quiet Tide? Good question. Microdosing, I don't feel you need to do it with anybody else at all. I feel it's a personal thing. When I do microdose, I generally dose first thing in the morning, before my breakfast, usually. And then I go about my day, and it's not the kind of thing that you're just going to want to be hanging around other people just because you microdose. Now, if you want to hang around other people for another reason, that's totally fine. But I don't really feel there would be like benefit necessarily. Because remember, when you're microdosing, you're doing this generally 3 or 4 days on, 3 or 4 days in a row, and then taking a couple days off, and then 3 or 4 days in a row, taking a couple days off, or whatever your pattern is, something like that. There's no reason that every time you do this, you're going to have to say, well, I microdosed today. I need to be around a lot of people. It's not really the way it works. However, things like journaling, um, sitting quietly, meditation could be great. Being in nature, if you get a chance. But a lot of people, like microdose and just go about your regular day, go to work, watch your kids, because again, it's barely perceptual. I used to say totally subperceptual, but let's say barely perceptual. It will not get you stoned. It will not get you high. It will not alter the way you do things during the day. As long as you're microdosing, you should be totally fine with that. So I hope that answers your question there. Let's get on to the next one here. SOS Wooden Ships on YouTube is asking, This is a great question for me because I am a retired dentist, and he or she is asking, should I brush my teeth after chewing a gummy before bed? A lot of sugar gets trapped in the gum pockets. Well, you're asking a dentist or you're asking a retired dentist. Of course, before you go to bed at night, you should always go to bed after you brush your teeth. That should be the last thing you do. In other words, you shouldn't brush your teeth, eat a bunch of stuff, then go to bed, because then food and is just, pretty much it could be caked on or on your teeth, and that's ultimately going to cause plaque accumulation, which causes dental and gum problems. So yes, if you're eating a gummy, let's say you've totally cleaned up, showered, whatever you do before bed, you're in your PJs, you're ready to go to bed, and then you eat a gummy. I would eat the gummy a little bit earlier, or I would go back and brush my teeth after the gummy. So thanks. Using my dental skills to answer that question, but I think most people probably could have answered that even if you're not a dentist, right? Okay. Next question. Can I drive while microdose? Oh, this is from SA4GAR. Can I drive while microdosing 1 gram? Well, there's a problem with that question. Does anybody know? Do you know what the problem with that question? Can I drive while microdosing 1 gram? Well, 1 gram is not a microdose. 1 gram is it's not a large heroic dose where you're going to be totally out of it, but it's a dose that's high enough. And I really need to do another episode. I think I'll do that really soon on the breakdown of dosages. So in other words, for example, microdosing could be anywhere from 50 milligrams, which would be 0.05 grams, 50 milligrams, up to about 300 milligrams. That's like a microdose range. Anything over 300, but maybe below a gram. And remember, a gram is 1,000 milligrams. So anything between 300 milligrams and 1,000 milligrams, that's larger than a microdose, usually considered about a museum dose. And I really should do an episode on this. But to get back to your question, if you're doing 1 gram, no, do not drive. You could feel high. You could have some, absolutely at the very least, closed eye visuals. You could be impaired somewhat. So it is absolutely not appropriate to drive while doing 1 gram of magic mushroom. Now, however, while I'm answering this question, I just thought of something else. It's possible the person that asked this question, SA4GAR, SAGAR, or whatever it is, the exception is if you're somewhere in Europe and you're using magic truffles. They are different than magic mushrooms. And yes, 1 gram of magic truffles, they're dosed very differently. So you guys in the US or in most areas that are doing mushrooms, just don't listen to this part, because if you're doing truffles, they're about 10 times weaker. So 1 gram of truffles would be a microdose. Now, I'm not an expert with truffles. I've never used truffles, but according to what I know, 1 gram of truffles would be equal to about 0.1 gram of magic mushroom. So if that's the case, and if you're asking this from somewhere in Europe and you're referring to truffles, then my answer would be totally different. And I would say, yes, the qualification there, the caveat would be, I am not an expert on magic truffles, so you have to understand them and test them out first and see if it's truly a microdose, which I believe it is. Hey, I've got a brand new episode that comes out every single Wednesday. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple. I thank you so much for being with me, because without you, I don't have a show. I couldn't be speaking into an empty mic. But we've got a lot of really good things going on, and I recommend, if you want to learn more about microdosing and about your mental health and things like that, and remember, it's not medical advice or medical treatment, but check out my website, microdoseu.com. It's microdose with the letter U on the end of it. And in the show notes, whether you're on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, I've got just a few really important links. And one of the things is, on my show and on Facebook and in comments, we never discuss sourcing. People say, well, where do I get this? How do I microdose LSD? We just don't talk about that. However, we do make exceptions on the Patreon page. We have a bunch of people, a bunch of you guys that are supporting the channel by being a member of Patreon. The link is in the show notes. I suggest if you want to know more and hang out with a great community, we do live meetings. It's really good. In fact, as I'm recording this, we have a live meeting coming right up really soon. We do them often, and these are the kind of questions we answer in Patreon. Now, having said that, I don't want, there is a small fee every month to be on Patreon. I keep it really, really low, but I really don't want the type of person that just jumps in, grabs some quick information, and then quits their membership. We're looking for a family, people that we're connecting with, we're bonding, we help each other out. That's what we're looking for in Patreon. So if you think you fit that description, love to have you over there. But the people that just jump in and out to grab something quick, that's not what it's for. It's not what it's for, and I think it's not really the coolest thing to do. But I can't stop you from doing that, but that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for connections, bonding, a really nice family that we help each other out. Okay, I am Dr. Dave. I will see you next week. If you're on Patreon, I'll see you really soon in our live meeting. Oh, what do I say at the end of every episode? I do love you, and I mean that, and I say it from my heart because, again, I do this for you, and I really want to see you feel better every single day. See you next time.